Hello my YouTubians, ControlNet 1.1 is here bringing us new and amazing features. If you don't know what ControlNet is, it is a tool in Stable Diffusion that will allow you to take an existing image or your top-tier artwork and turn it into something rather beautiful. The installation process from version 1.0 to 1.1 is almost identical, but with the exception of downloading your models from a different Hugging Face site. I will be using Automatic 1111 to run Stable Diffusion. If you find yourself asking yourself, what is a Stable Diffusion? Then check out my install guide in the video description. Let's get back to our normal program and get started, shall we? Why are you looking at me like that?
Thank you, kind sir. I just want to start by saying that this video is very long, but the actual update portion is only 2 minutes long and the install is about 5 minutes, so that part is relatively short. Most of the video is me trying to explain all the different ControlNet options that you can have. I try to do it as quick as possible. My version 1.0 video goes into a lot more detail and I'll leave that in my video description. I have chapters in my video so you can skip to whatever section you want, but one thing that you shouldn't skip is the new settings and how to use them. First, I want to go over updating to version 1.1. If you already have 1.0, this is going to be super quick. Just open up your Stable Diffusion, go to your extensions tab, then go to the installed sub tab, then click on check for updates. You'll probably see something like this where it says behind and a check mark where your ControlNet is if you're still on version 1.1. And all you got to do to update it is just click on apply and restart. And that's it. Once this thing is reloaded, your extension should be updated, but you still need to add the model files because that's actually what the version 1.1 is. We just updated the extension. So let's go grab the version 1.1 files. Head over to the aiart website. I think I said that right. Go ahead and click download on all the ones that you want. So just click on the down arrow and all the .pth files that you want. And you don't need the YAML files anymore. They should be there by default. Automatic 1111 will do that part now. So there's a couple new ones here and most of them are at the top. There's shuffle, there's tile, there's line art, and OpenPose has a bunch of new features, but you don't want to keep the old ones. So I would just download everything here and erase all the old ones that exist in your models folder because those won't work with these new preprocessors. So go ahead and grab all of these, and they're significantly smaller now. They're only 1.45 gigabytes each. They used to be like 5 gigabytes, so that's a significant downsize. And if you grab all of them, it's going to be about 20 gigs. Not a big deal. One that you definitely want to get is this tile one because it's going to help with your upscales. So click on the download button and you'll see it downloading here, and just do the same for all of them, which is what I did. Now that you have your model files downloaded, you can see here that my ControlNet model files are on the left, and on right is my Stable Diffusion folder. I'm going to go into extensions and then sd-webui-controlnet, then into models. So don't get this confused with the normal models folder. And you just grab all the files that you downloaded and drag them right in here, and that will update you to version 1.1. And then you would just use ControlNet as you normally would by scrolling down here to the bottom and clicking on ControlNet and messing with the options here. There's a couple new settings here, and these are all quality of life additions, so they're welcome changes. And don't forget, if you want multi-ControlNet, just go ahead and go into settings here and then scroll down over here and look for ControlNet on the left side here, right there. And go ahead and drag this slider that says multi-ControlNet to the amount of ControlNets that you want. Then click on apply settings, reload UI. Then when you come back into text to image or image to image, you'll see that you have multiple ControlNets. So I have ControlNet unit 0, 1, and 2. And that's it. Your ControlNet is updated and ready to use. Okay, for the first time ControlNet installers, this is the process. Go ahead and grab the URL in my video description for the GitHub repository for Miko Build's ControlNet. Once you get in here, go to the code button and then go ahead and click on these double squares to grab that address. Fun fact, so this is the same exact address as the one in the address bar here. It just has .git at the end. I found that using either or works fine. But go ahead and grab this link here, and you can also just grab it from my video description and use that. But the next step is to go into Stable Diffusion, go into extensions, then go into install from URL. Go ahead and paste that link that you just copied into the URL for extensions Git repository. And then for local directory name, don't worry about it. It's going to make one for you. And then just go ahead and click install. Once everything is installed, you'll see something at the bottom here that says installed to and whatever folder that it's installed to, which is usually the extensions folder of Stable Diffusion. Now go ahead and go into the installed sub tab of extensions, then click on check for updates. You can see I have all the latest updates. If you see anything that says behind here on the right side, just go ahead and click on apply and restart. Or you can just click on apply and restart anyways. And that will update your Stable Diffusion. If everything went well and you're back in, go ahead and go to your text to image tab and then scroll to the bottom and you're going to see something down here that says ControlNet. And mine is version 1.1.150. Go ahead and click on that area and then it'll open up ControlNet itself. And this is how you're going to be using ControlNet. You're going to drop an image here or a batch of images, and then you're going to use these tools to actually create something here. If you don't see ControlNet down here, you probably just got to restart your web UI user command prompt. So just go ahead and close it and then open it back up again, and it should kind of correct everything. And I had an error, it said something about permissions with a WinSock error 5. I just closed it and opened it again and it went away. Hopefully I don't run into any problems later. But yeah, don't worry too much at first and try to do some crazy troubleshooting. Just close your web UI user command file and run it again and it'll probably work. Which you're going to have to close it anyways because we're going to have to drop the models in here and load it. But technically it probably doesn't need to close, but let's just do it to kind of not run into any errors. So go ahead and close it out. The final step will be downloading the models and then dragging them into your Stable Diffusion folder. It's going to be Stable Diffusion, Extensions, ControlNet, then the Models folder. So that's the Models folder in ControlNet, not your regular Stable Diffusion Models folder. Go ahead and go to my video description and there'll be a Hugging Face site for Isiasville. I don't know how to pronounce that, whatever that name is. And go ahead and download all of the models if you want, or you can just select a few models and basically the ones that end with PTH are the actual model, and you'll be clicking on this down arrow right here to download the model. And so for example here we got the dep.pth, so that's the dep map model. You can just click on this to start to download, and there it is. Each of these models are about 1.45 gigabytes each. So altogether it's going to be about 20.3 gigs. It's not that bad. They used to be a lot bigger, so I would recommend grabbing all of them, but if you had to choose like 5 of them, I would choose soft edge or depth mapping for your general purpose, ControlNet, and then you can have a Scribble. Scribble's fun to play with. You can like draw on a canvas and then have that turned into some nice art. And then Open Pose is probably going to be the one that you use the most. That one's where you can actually create your own pose within Stable Diffusion and mess with that. MLSD if you're going to do buildings and architecture, and of course the tile.pth because that's going to be for upscaling. And this is really preference. That's why I said just download all of them, and if you don't like some of them, just delete them. Yoink! So I'm going to go ahead and click on all of these. I want all of these models, so I'm going to just click on the down arrows for each one of these until I get them all. All right, and now I just have to wait for them to download, then put them in my ControlNet folder. All my downloads are done, and on the left side you can see the downloads of the ControlNet models that I just got from the Hugging Face site, and on the right you can see my Stable Diffusion folder. So in Stable Diffusion I'm going to open my extensions folder, and then the sd-webui-controlnet folder, and then the models folder. As you can see, all the YAML files are already there. So I'm going to go to the folder on the left, which is my downloads, and I'm just going to grab everything and throw them into the Stable Diffusion models folder right there. So these are all of the models, and that's 20 gigs of stuff. There should be about 14 models. Awesome. So we now have ControlNet fully installed.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Or maybe. Let's go see if it works, right? So go ahead and run Stable Diffusion by clicking on the web UI tag user.bat file. And you're going to notice a bunch of ControlNet stuff popping up in the prompt. So right here it says ControlNet version 1.1.150. This is going to support a bunch of extensions like Pix2Pix, Ultimate SD Upscale, and also like you see here, Deform ControlNet. You can see that the support was enabled. When you open Stable Diffusion, you'll probably notice, hopefully you'll notice if everything went well, there'll be a ControlNet tab at the bottom here. So this won't be open by default. You're actually going to see this, and it's going to be right above the scripts. And when you click in this area, you'll actually open up ControlNet, and this is where you could drag in your images and mess with the settings. And now you're going to notice when you click on the models drop down, you're going to see all the models in here, like the normal map, the MLSD, the line art, Canny, all that stuff. If you don't, click on this and it should refresh it and bring them in. And if it doesn't again, then you probably put them in the wrong folder. Make sure they're in the Stable Diffusion, Extensions, ControlNet, then the models folder for ControlNet. Don't get that confused with the normal models folder. This is the one for the extension of ControlNet. There's a models folder in there. So this is also in other places as well, like image to image. You'll notice here at the bottom, there's also ControlNet here. And this will also be closed by default. You're just gonna have to click on ControlNet right here, and it's gonna open it up for you. Then if you have Deform, you're gonna see it in here as well. There's different models here that you can select. But before we go any further, let's add multi-ControlNet. So there'll be multiple tabs here, so you can actually work with multiple models. So you can use like a Scribble with a line art with, you know, depth or whatever you want to do to get a better result on what you're trying to accomplish. So just go ahead and go into settings here at the top. Mine's at the top left, yours is probably on the top right. Then go down to ControlNet. You'll see it here at the left, and then here it says multi-ControlNet max models amount. So just go ahead and drag this to the amount of models that you want. So I want probably 3. I think 3 is enough for me. So I'm going to apply settings, and then I'm going to reload the UI. All right, so let's check if it took. So now when you click on ControlNet, you'll see that I have 3 different options here. I have ControlNet Unit 0, Unit 1, and Unit 2. So I can actually use 3 different ControlNets at the same time on a single picture. And this is more useful than you think. You can capture a pose, and you can can use a depth map, and then you can also come back with, you know, line art or something to kind of really get what you're looking for. Now let's take a quick look at the settings. So the first one here is your actual canvas. So if you click on this, it's going to open up a canvas here, and you can set the width. And once you create that canvas, it's going to give you something you could draw on. So this is what you can use for like Scribble Diffusion. And then you could use ControlNet to turn that into a person that's not a stick figure. Next, you have enable webcam if you want to take a picture of yourself and turn yourself into something. And I'm not too sure what these two are. I haven't used this function, but if anybody knows, please put it in the comments. And then this one's the most important one. You have to click on the enable button to actually enable ControlNet. If you have multiple ones, you're going to see this because it wants to know if you're going to actually enable all three of them or just one of them. I'm just going to click on enable the first one since I definitely got to enable it. Next is low VRAM, which is pretty self-explanatory. You know, if you have a toaster, you know who you are. If you start running out of VRAM, then click on that. Next is pixel perfect. And if you enable this, it'll actually match the resolution of what you have here that you uploaded. So this preprocessor resolution is going to disappear. Check it out. And it's just going to match to whatever this is. Just keep in mind, if you got a 4K image in here, you're going to have a 4K wait time. So especially if you have low VRAM, that's not going to be good for your computer. So you might want to lower the resolution to 512 if you're in that category. If you have like 12 gigabytes of VRAM, then you know you don't really need to care. Just click on pixel perfect. Then allow preview is the next one, and it's just going to show the map here on the right side. So you would just click on this little explosion icon. It's an interesting choice, but when you click on that, it's going to show you the map on the right side here. As you can see, it's a HED or soft edge map, which like I said is kind of like a mixture between a depth map and a Canny map. It's just that the lines are all smoothed out. And this is more for if you're trying to get really specific with like the hands and the face, and then you want to see if it took. This is what you would need the preview for. Typically, you could just run it without it. Next is the two most important settings. Actually, they're the second most important because if you don't click on enable, none of this is working. None of it's happening. But we got preprocessor and model. And one thing you have to know is that you have to match these. If you mix them up, it's going to give you some weird stuff. And unless you want a Picasso or something that's just really odd, make sure you match these things. Right now I have soft edge HED, and it's also matched with a soft edge here on the right side for the model. So just make sure you pair them up, and if you're getting something really crazy, then you better go check that. If not, you might be on shuffle, which also creates some crazy stuff. Just take note of that. By the way, this is like one of the most popular paintings on Etsy right now. It's $197 for this thing. I was just looking for an example for a Picasso meme, and I found this actual art that costs $197. I mean, I guess I just don't have the intellectual palette to understand this art piece. So I guess if you mix the models and you create a really bad picture, you can actually just sell it on Etsy like this one right here. But yeah, what a deal, right? Go and get it. Next is control weight. And this one's pretty self-explanatory. The default is at 1. And if you increase it, it's going to have more strength on ControlNet. The next one is you're just going to have to experiment for yourself with these ones. This is like really hard to explain. I actually don't quite understand it myself, but I do understand the results it produces. It's a little weird. And looking at the GitHub here, it says here it applies from the beginning until 80% of the steps, total steps is done. So you can see right here, if I put 0.80, it's going to start at 0.80. Let's just make it an easy number. You can see if I put 0.50 in the starting control step, that it's going to apply at 50% of my total steps, which is 20. So it's going to apply at 10 steps, if I understand it correctly. How that affects the photo, though, is something I can't explain. You're just going to have to tweak this. And it's just another way you can actually put more control and, or actually, in this case, less control on your picture to come up with different results and kind of tweak your photo a little bit more. So it's a welcome addition. All right, so here's the original picture. To keep things simple, I'm just going to say SCS for start control step and ECS for end control step. Here we got SCS 0 and ECS equals 1. Here we got SCS equals 0.50 or 50% and ECS equals 1 or 100%. Now we got SCS equals 1 and ECS equals 1, so they're both maxed out. Now we got SCS equals 0 and ECS equals 0. Then we got SCS equals 0, ECS equals 0.50. Now this is SCS 0 and ECS 1. And just for fun, I did a face restore of this image just to see how it looks like. And then I added the word elf into the prompt to see what that looks like. And it looks pretty good. And this is actually what the original input is. And I'm going to show you live how I drew that, just in case you need any pointers. But this is it. So this is the sword and this is the shield. And it kind of copied it backwards, but it does have the sword and shield down. Next is preprocessor resolution. And you could just drag this back and forth depending on what video card you have. So let's just be honest with ourselves, right? So if you have a 4080, go go ahead and crank it all the way up. Maybe you have to be in the middle if you have like one of the lower RTX series, but if you're still in the GTX series, just bring it way down here. I just click on Pixel Perfect and it works for me. It chooses the resolution that's best for the image that I uploaded. Now we have control mode, which is a really awesome new addition here. So the balance is kind of the vanilla flavor. So this is kind of what control mode did before on the guest mode. But now we have my prompt is more important and control net is more important. So I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory here. If you put a prompt, then it's going to focus on that more. And this one's going to focus on the input image instead of the prompt if you check that radio button. All right, so we got all the basic settings out of the way. So let's go take a look at the models. And I'm going to go through them real quick, but I'm actually not going to go through all of them. But I'm going to leave a video at the end, which is just my older 1.0 video, but it goes through what each model does in great detail. So I thought it was very useful. There's also going to be some information on how to use some cool tools to get your own kind of personal pose. So when you're trying to understand what each model does, this site that I'm going to put in my video description is super helpful and you need to check it out. This is going to tell you everything you want to know about ControlNet, and it's going to show you all the different examples between the models. It's going to be very helpful. All right, so the first example is a depth map, and the first thing to take note of is here on the left, you'll see the input image. Then right here in the middle is actually what it produces. So this is what ControlNet uses, and in this particular case, it's using a depth map, and this is what a depth map looks like. Basically, it looks like a ghost or something, and it's just kind of like a smoky kind of representation of a 3D object. This is a good standard go-to just for kind of general purpose. You're just trying to capture a shape, and here are the results here. All right, so let's go to the next model. The next one we have here is normal maps, and if you ever worked in Unreal 5, you'll know about normal maps, height maps, bump maps. So same concept. It's just kind of showing you the variance and the difference in height and everything between different bumps and texture within the object. And so it creates this map and it's able to retexture it and put in all these cool stuff on it. I mean, this looks pretty wild. Now here's a normal map of an entire room instead of just one object, and it does a pretty good job at copying the room. I recommend that you check this page out for yourself so you can jump in there and kind of look at the pictures one by one. Next is the Canny Edges model, and by the name you could tell what it does. You know, it's an edge detector, so it kind of gives you an image just like this over here for the model, and it's able to transfer the style onto another puppy right here. And this is particularly good for this image or anime that has a bunch of lines, because it's something that a depth map wouldn't do, because the depth map would just kind of smooth out in between the hairs here, and it'll just be like one big blob of smoke. So this one's very good at detecting all the little fine hairs and stuff like that. Next is MLSD, or multi-line segment detection, and this one's pretty good at doing interior design or architecture, like the outside of buildings. Anything that has like long straight lines, like you can see here in this picture where the model actually draws it out, this is what you want to use it for. And the reason being is because some of the other models, they might actually kind of not capture the straight line, and it's going to be a little crooked when you actually make the picture, and you're going to see some warped images, you're going to see some crooked corners, and things like this bed here might be a little off. It might be missing a corner, or it might be a U-shaped on the side here. So you can use this model if you want to capture these types of photos. Next is my personal favorite, which is Soft Edge, and this used to be called HED, but now it's called Soft Edge. It's like a combination of a depth map, a scribble, and also Canny. Maybe not so much the Canny, but it seems like the easy mode to copy pretty much any picture. Next is Semantic Segmentation. If you ever played with Nvidia Canvas, this is the same thing. So it separates each object and gives it a kind of definition. So if you look at these colors here, each of these colors represent some type of object that's defined by ControlNet. And then it recreates the picture over here with that information that you gave it. So it takes this input image, it turns it into this segmented map, and then it creates a new image. If you look really closely, you're going to see some of these edges are a little warped or they're a little crooked because the map kind of took the entire thing right here. This is why you would use multi-ControlNet or just use MLSD by itself, because MLSD can straighten out those lines and make it look a little bit more natural, like on these edges right here. So definitely play with that. Now we got Open Pose, and this is probably the most useful one, and it's they beefed it up big time. You can also watch my version 1.0, and I teach you how to install PoseX so you can create your own pose, this stick figure, without an input image in ControlNet pretty easily. Spoiler alert, you're just actually going to the extensions and downloading PoseX. That's PoseX. Then you'll have a tab where you can manipulate these objects and create your own. But if you're not using PoseX, you'll take the input image, you'll turn it into a stick figure and turn it into whatever picture you want. And this is really good for capturing poses, as the name suggests, right? But it's next level because it doesn't mesh with anything else. It actually gives an exact outline of what you want them to pose like. So if you use something else, it could kind of confuse the knee with the other knee or whatever, or the knee with an object next to it, but this will actually separate everything. And now it includes hands and faces, which is the real powerful one because the face one was kind of hard to do. So this one actually captures the face, which is a huge improvement. And you could also take just the face and manipulate it if you just want the face with a different body and you just want it to have the same expression. It's not perfect, but it does work. And if you find something like a smile or a frown, something not coming out exactly the way you want it, you can actually put the expressions in the prompt to help ControlNet out so it can actually determine what it's looking at. It's a big help if you put smiling or frowning. It really helps the system, even though ControlNet already kind of captures the face. Next is Tile, and Tile is one of the biggest improvements because Stable Diffusion never really upscaled really good. I mean, there was a free upscaler you can do 4 times, but it was kind of like the same image, just like different resolutions. It's like a bigger file, but it didn't really do a great job at upscaling. Check out the nightly post in my video description and you'll see all the examples of Tile here, and you can see the full quality and look at these photos for yourself to judge. Next is Synthesized Scribble, and this is a great way to just capture the outline of a person. If you don't want to capture too much detail on the person's face or anywhere else and you just want to copy the pose and the overall shape of their body, you can actually just throw it into Synthesized Scribble and you can see the examples here. You'll get this model, which is like someone drew it, and then you'll have a lot of freedom to create a much different result. Now there's also another type of scribble, which is interactive scribble, and this is actually you drawing onto a canvas. So if you go into Stable Diffusion, ControlNet, you could actually click on this right here where it says open a new canvas, and then you could specify the width and height. Don't get confused, this is for the canvas only. This has nothing to do with your photo that's in there. So click on create a new canvas and then you can start drawing on it. You could draw a person or whatever. This is my awesome artwork. And then you could just describe something in the prompt and turn it into something. So I put a female warrior with a sword and shield. Let's see what it does based on this picture. All right, it gave me something pretty nice, but the sword and shield are backwards, but this is pretty cool. I actually like this picture a lot. And it's a little blurry, but if you didn't know, you can actually fix these pictures. You can send it to image and do a latent upscale. So you could send this to image and then just go ahead and scroll down and put your denoising strength to like 0.20, double the height and width, and just click generate. And as you can see, it went to blurry and you can't even recognize her eyes, to some pretty nice results here and a good picture that we can use. And this all came from a stick figure, which I mean, my stick figure art is pretty good, but it's not, you know, something that should create this. This is pretty amazing. So this is the power of ControlNet. And if you ever just tried to ask for a shield and sword, try it. It's really hard to do. ControlNet makes it super simple. Ask for a shield and sword and just find out the crazy stuff that happens. So you need ControlNet for a picture like this. Alright, so that's my guide for ControlNet version 1.1, and I'd like to go over all the models, but it would take forever. This video would be 30 minutes long. But what I do recommend is checking out my version 1.0 videos, and I go over the existing models in much more detail. And I also suggest checking out my video description. There's that one link for ControlNet Nightly, and this will have all the different styles in here so you can look at them for yourself. But this is a very powerful tool, and there's so much to it. I mean, it does video, it does upscaling, and it does a lot of stuff. So I would definitely download this tool. The download installation part was very short, very easy, but it's just trying to explain this stuff and actually get into it is what takes a long time. Hopefully you liked the video and you learned something, and just leave a like if you did. Just hitting the like button helps me a lot, and I'd greatly appreciate it. But yeah, definitely check out my version 1.0 video. It's going to be popping up soon, and it's also going to be in my video description. Thanks a lot and have a great rest of your day.